This is ridiculous.
Just do a little dance. Trying to make a little love, but not really getting down to that.
Can we get in copyright trouble for that?
No, we can say lyrics of songs. I don't think that's illegal. Ice, ice, baby.
We will rock you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of This Is My Bourbon Podcast, the official podcast of This Is My Bourbon Shop, where we talk with friends about what makes bourbon the spirit of Kentucky. My name's Perry. Thank you all so much for being here with us in 2018. We had a little break over the holidays, and with me this week is the other half of the home-based co-host. We had the first half, last full episode.
We've split into two.
Split off for a couple of weeks. Tanner's here with us this week. Tanner,
Hi.
Hey, buddy.
Hello.
Hey, man. How were your holidays?
They were hololicious is what I was going to say. I don't know why. But we'll go with...
Holiday-rific.
Oh, that's good.
That's rough.
That's holidangerous.
That's
keep going down that.
There we go. There's a shirt. There's a shirt
There's
for
the
you.
shirt. A minute in and we're ready.
Yeah. A
up.
couple quick things up top before we really get into the meat of everything. First off, if you missed it, we had a little special bonus episode a couple weeks ago about what our best bourbons of 2017 were. Curtis was on for that. Tanner, what'd you say your best bourbon of 2017 was? We wound up saying, I don't know if you've heard it or not, but we wound up saying the William LaRue Weller BTAC. And the caveat was something that was released in 2017 that you had that you really liked.
Oh. Darn.
As I'm putting you on the spot right there.
Yeah. I think in the text I didn't know that caveat was.
It was kind of a spur of the moment thing too when we were actually recording.
It was 1792, just because 1792 has had a great year for me
just
personally.
in general. Yeah.
From not really knowing about it that much to drinking it a lot.
Yeah. Well, the 225th anniversary was one of the ones that I threw into my top 5. Curtis only had the top one. But anyway, all this being said, if you missed that little bonus episode, it's only about 20 minutes long. Go check it out. It's on iTunes, Google Play, Podbean. Did I say YouTube?
You did not.
I didn't say YouTube. Oh, and now Bandcamp.
Whoa.
We actually have the show on Bandcamp now. You
Nice.
can download everything if you're trying to get caught up as a whole season.
Cool.
So, you can go check it out. You can also purchase the show through Bandcamp. I'm not saying you have to, but that option is always there if that's the way you want to support the show. And speaking of supporting the show, our Patreon is live.
Hey.
Has been for a couple of weeks. If you head to patreon.com/thisismybourbonpodcast, we have some awesome little tiers on there that we're going to hopefully start rolling some fun stuff out through once we get some patrons on board. One of those things is, when we're not doing it tonight, is recording the show on video too.
Oh, nice.
And having that be an exclusive. But if you donate so much, you can get a shirt from the shop for free, basically, and so on and so forth. But
Now,
anyway,
Perry, what's your favorite tier?
what's my favorite tier?
Yeah. What's the best tier you think? Best bang for your buck as a patron.
Well, here's the thing. I threw up a $50 tier.
You threw up. Oh no.
I threw. That's the story of my holidays. I threw up. That's
$50.
$50.
Hell of a story.
$50 per vomit. No, I threw up a $50 tier for anybody who was crazy enough to donate that much.
Sure.
And it's everything up to the shirt plus a little special bonus gift that I haven't disclosed yet to anybody.
It's a secret.
It is a secret. So that is very specific to the $50 tier. So
just a $50 bill.
a
lot of value.
Goes
in that
right
one.
back into your pocket.
Yeah.
Just tell us, send the receipt. It's tax deductible.
Actually, don't even just send us the money. We'll send you stuff. That's not true. I'm completely
we're
breaking this model.
Yeah, please just give us your money. But no, don't feel obligated by any means. Bourbon is an expensive hobby. as we all kind of know, to donate to the show. But if you feel so inclined, we will not say no. We will really appreciate it. And donate $50 a month and find out what that special surprise is. And, you know.
I mean, I want to find out.
It's a date with Perry.
Whoa!
Wednesday. No, I'm just kidding. That'd be rough. And then the third thing, I wanted to clarify a point from the last actual episode. We did a review of Henry McKenna Single Barrel, the bottled and bond. I only gave the barrel number of that one. We gave it like super high marks because it was like something we'd never had before in terms of the Henry McKenna.
Sure.
The barrel number was 3446. It kind of dawned on me that it's not the only 3446 that has existed in the history of Henry McKenna. What's important is the distilling season, which was the first distilling season of 2007, which means that it would have come out in the first half of 2017. So, man, she is really determined, isn't she?
Yeah.
So it's going to be kind of hard to find. I did find a bottle recently of 2016 Henry McKenna that is also exceptional. So, you know, just kind of in general, Henry McKenna is a really good bourbon. But I just wanted to clarify that before we jumped into everything. So that being said, Tanner.
Yes.
And I don't even want to jump into the topic firsthand. Before we do that, I want to ask you because, and I have an answer that is ridiculous kind of answer, but
oh, no.
Did you have a best video game of 2017?
I do.
Really? What is it?
And I haven't decided which one it is yet.
Do you have top five in no
particular order? Sure, yes. So, top five in no particular order. Now, I'm going to throw this caveat in here. There are some games that I've bought on the Steam sale that I want to get to from this year.
Yeah.
That I haven't gotten to yet. So notable exceptions. I've not gotten to play Wolfenstein or Shadow of War now. It used to be Shadow of Mordor. Those naming.
Was that the sequel to
Yes.
Shadow of Mordor? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
and then some smaller indie games that I want to get to.
Mm-hmm.
Top five, no particular order. PUBG, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
Okay.
It was my game of the year for a long time. I don't know if it's my game of the year now. I'm not sure why, but I've got like 275 hours in that game this year. I bought it in July.
Jeez.
The game's insane.
Man.
Super Mario Odyssey.
Heard fantastic. I think we talked about that on the show
Yes,
before.
it's
too. I've
amazing.
heard great things about
The real unknown right now is Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Why's that?
I've played about 20 hours of it. I'm not as deep into it as I would like to before making a final decision. It's fantastic. Two other games that are smaller and you may not have heard of are a normal lost phone, which is there's some dog stuff happening. That's why I'm
real dog loving going on right
sounding flustered. No, you're good. A normal lost phone, which is on mobile devices on PC, where the whole concept of the game is that you find a phone and you have to try to like piece together what happened. Why is this phone just sitting?
Oh,
here?
cool. Gotcha.
It's maybe 2 hours at the most.
That's interesting.
It's really interesting.
That reminds me of what's it called? It came out around the same time as the game The Room. It was another mobile game. It was like the Silent Age or something like that.
Okay. Mobile is not my strong suit.
Sure. I mean,
sure.
That's about all I do anymore anyway in terms of gaming. But where it was set during the Cold War era, and you had to kind of piece together this mystery of like a janitor who was working in a big multi-million-dollar company and everything.
Nice.
And it's a lot of fun. I never actually finished it, but from what I played of it, I enjoyed.
And then the fifth one, which is really the dark horse here. Okay, so PUBG I've thought was my game of the year all along because I just put so much time into it, and it's such a different model from any other game I've played. Zelda is the real contender for me right now as far as is that game better than PUBG? I don't know yet. I don't have enough time.
Sure.
The real dark horse here is Emily is Away 2.
Interesting.
Do you know anything about this game?
I feel like I've heard about the first one.
Okay, so this is the second one, TOO, but it's the second one.
Okay.
They're not connected in any way. Well, like Easter egg maybe, but they're not connected in any way story-wise. They're both games you play in AOL Instant Messenger. Like, the game is an AOL Instant Messenger.
Okay.
And there are different characters that will respond to you different ways depending on how you... It is the game that easily I connected with most this year.
Really?
The emotional resonance in that game is insane.
Wow.
I cried on stream playing it.
Holy crap.
It was a whole thing. Like, that game got to me.
Kevin Smith in it. All right.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know exactly where that falls on. Like, it's so hard to compare that game to, like, Zelda. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's two completely different
But
animals.
as far as just creating an emotional response for me, that's sort of the dark horse.
Yeah. Very cool. Was your worst... And I feel like this is the worst game for everybody. Was it Star Wars Battlefront 2?
See, I didn't play it, so I guess so. Because I love Battlefront 1, but everybody,
But
I've heard the
word of
game is
mouth.
actually decent.
Yeah.
But yeah,
once
just
you get caught up in microtransactions.
The box situations, right?
Yeah, totally. It is ridiculous. I actually put a picture up of it on the Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
But the Super Nintendo Classic, I've had a lot of fun with.
Oh, yeah, you got that.
I did get it.
I saw
yeah,
where you were playing it on your story.
I have the regular Nintendo Classic.
Oh, nice.
Too.
Yeah,
that I got last year for Christmas. And I actually played it today while I had some downtime. And
That's
I was like,
so awesome.
this is fantastic. The controls lag a little bit. It's a little bit slow. It's fine though. It is what it is. I mean, yeah, exactly. It's enjoyable, but I had no problems with the Super Nintendo Classic.
Nice.
I'm a big old school video game guy. You know, I haven't taken a whole lot of time to delve into like the more modern stuff. And really, the only time that I play video games is if I've been drinking a little bit too. And then I'm like,
that's when video games are the best.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like I got nothing else to do. You know, I may as well dive into something. And you know, I'm a big Mario guy. I love Zelda.
Sure.
But yeah, that's my pick, even though it doesn't
I
really
think
count.
that's totally valid.
Yeah, but I mean, it's more of a an emulator than it is anything else. But I've seen a lot of people too who are complaining about Nintendo releasing the NES, and this is of course so far off topic from bourbon, but you know, I was curious because I've been really into everybody's top of the year list recently,
and I've been working on a write up for my top games of the year. So
and will you be talking about it on your other podcast as well?
So Dormcast is on hiatus. Yeah, it's hard to where I'm at work most of the time and Jay's at school. Our schedules rarely ever line up. I'll put something out somewhere. I'll post something, probably write up.
Yeah. Well, if not, you heard it here first.
Yeah, that's my tentative top 5. I don't know where everything's gonna land.
But I have seen a lot of people complaining about Nintendo putting out the NES and the Super Nintendo classics as almost more cash grabs than like there being any real value to them. But at the same time, like I think the nostalgia is really what is the most valuable about it. And I mean, sure, you can illegally go and download ROMs and get emulators and everything, but I think this is just a much more visceral experience than doing things illegally.
I completely agree with you. The only problem I have with it is the scarcity.
I think that's fair.
They're treating themselves as a toy maker and not a games maker.
Yeah.
And that's what's bothersome.
I
think for $60 that is incredible value. I would totally buy one if I could get my hands on it. But
for sure, yeah. And I mean, I got real lucky getting them both for Christmas. I mean, one last year, one this year, and everything. But and I'm real bummed the Super Nintendo's at my mom and dad's right now because I played it Christmas night and I just hadn't had a chance to go back and get it yet. But anyway, okay, so Bourbon Podcast exclusive. Tanner Chaney's top 5 in no particular order video games of the year.
Top 5
2017. Yeah. So anyway, we on this bourbon drinking podcast are drinking bourbon. And we
Imagine that.
what a surprise. And right now I have a dog on my lap, so it's making it a little bit hard to reach out. We are drinking on an older bottle of Knob Creek small batch. Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. It's 100 proof. This is actually a bottle that is still age stated. Back in the day, Knob Creek used to be 9 years old, and then within the past couple of years, they took the age off. So that means it's anywhere probably between 6 or 7 to 9 years old. So it was kind of fortuitous that I found this bottle. Tanner had said a couple weeks ago that he had a bottle of Knob Creek a long time ago and had never really gone back to it.
Yeah.
And so I thought this was a good opportunity for Tanner to revisit it, kind of like we did with Curtis with the Wild Turkey 101 for the last episode of the year. By the way, if you hear coughing from upstairs, Lucy's sick. So
yeah, I wonder what she was.
Yeah, she's upstairs, not feeling well. So, thoughts and prayers.
Yeah, tell her I said get better.
Anyway, so how do you feel about this now that you've revisited it after a while?
It's better. I don't know. I had this weird thing in my head where it's like, I think I talked about this last time when we talked about it, but it was almost a consumerist problem rather than a drinking like how it tastes problem. I was just like, I've had Knob Creek Cool. Box checked. But I'm not like that with other bourbons. Like I buy Woodford semi-regularly. Like I don't know why I was that way with Knob Creek. I don't know if this is enough to buck that. It's good. But at the price point, I don't know if I'm ever just going to be like, I want Knob Creek.
Yeah, and I mean you can find it in some places for $25 to $27, which is cheaper than Woodford is.
Yeah.
That being said, if it's just not your thing, it's not your thing. I quite like it. I like it a lot, especially in compared to the single barrel. Not that I don't like the single barrel. I think both are phenomenal, but for very different reasons. I just think that the small batch is a little bit more well-rounded. It's got so much like nuttiness to it too. That I think is it kind of sends it over the edge for me without it being too overpowering or anything. But yeah, I'm happy to hear that you at least would consider it again.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All that being said, the topic for the week, and we're going to kind of come back to this in the future, and we'll get to that later on. But I wanted to talk about, because Tanner is really kind of the youngest bourbon drinker, I think, out of the three of us. The baby Bourbon Boy.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly. I can't remember if there was a barrel in there or not.
No, just
baby Bourbon Boy.
Baby Bourbon Boy.
Sure.
And so I wanted to take things back to the beginning.
Which am I the youngest of us?
You were born in 95?
Yeah.
And so was Kurt, right?
Yeah, but he's older than me.
Then yeah, you are the youngest out of the three of us.
Yeah, I am the baby Bourbon Boy.
Interesting. That actually never occurred to me. So we're gonna, kind of dial it back to more early stages of bourbon. We talk a lot about the what we really look for in bourbon, and some of our harder to find favorite bourbons and all that good stuff. But and when our very first episode, we talked about how we all got into bourbon. Mm-hmm. What is it, dog? It's okay. It's okay. You got him. You got him. No. It's okay. I'm leaving all this in, by the way. This is the segment of the show called Calming the Dog. This has been a nice rambling 20 minutes so far.
Oh,
this
20.
show.
All right,
yeah.
Cool. That's a weird episode.
Yes, absolutely. But we talked about, going back to what we first started drinking out with. And you said what originally, I can't remember off the top of my head. It was like your first kind of bourbon that you...
The first bourbon I owned was Bullet. I think the first... Gosh, I don't know what the first bourbon I tasted was. I imagine it was Jim.
Yeah, I feel like that's most people's.
Yeah.
And that's going to be our review for the episode later on, just because that's, again, what so many people go to.
Yeah. I've never tried KG because no one has ever been cheap enough to have it.
I think I have some.
Do you really?
It's either that or KT. I can't remember for sure.
That's surprising to me.
Just it was one of those things where it was like, let's to kind of have around just in case.
I've tried some other really cheap bourbons, but I think that I think my first drink of bourbon was probably Jim. Or maybe Maker's.
I think mine was Maker's.
Because that's the one that, somebody's dad offers you. Like, hey, kid, here's some bourbon.
Yeah.
Like,
that doesn't sound creepy at all.
It's Kentucky. Hello. That's a rite of passage.
Oh, no, for sure. I don't know if I ever actually talked about, like, when I started getting into bourbon on the first episode. I think I went back and I was like, I asked Curtis and Tanner, but I didn't divulge.
Hey, Perry, how'd you get into bourbon?
Well, since you asked, my dad was, and I've had my dad on the show before too. My dad was always really big into Makers, so Makers was one of those that was kind of just sitting around the house. So I kind of had this inclination, like, oh, Makers is what I should be drinking. So that was what I started out with. I wasn't a huge fan of it because it was at that time a little too not strong, but just kind of there was like a real sharp alcohol taste to it. Yeah, definitely. And like after coming back to it, I liked it. I liked it more. But then I went through like, Jim Beam. I think I had a bottle of Jim Beam Devil's Cut at one point.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which I got violently sick on. Like drank way too much of it in one night.
The devil got back at you.
No, boy did he.
And how?
And then I kind of dialed back for a little while to Jim Beam American Honey.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which isn't even bourbon.
Yeah, you went entirely basic on me.
I really did. And I thought I was so cool at that point because I was
Really?
like drinking it straight.
That's awesome.
Or putting it in like lemonade or stuff like that. And
Okay.
I still like bourbon and lemonade from time to time. It's a great summer drink.
Sure.
But
Mostly because lemonade's a great summer drink.
well, true. But if you want to, kick it over the edge a little bit,
sure, of course.
Or American honey or something like that. It's just a very interesting little cocktail. But I had Jim Beam, I had Evan Williams and Woodford and all that good stuff that you kind of roll into as you're starting out with bourbon, and found my home with Bullet for a little while, and then it just kind of blew up from there. And bourbon, I think up until really 2017, bourbon was just kind of around for me. That was my go-to drink, but then I really started getting serious about it as soon as I found people like Chad and Sarah of Bourbon Night.
Sure.
And seeing that like I could actually do something with it instead of it just being like
A spirit.
a spirit. Yeah. Exactly. So, all of this was kind of born within the past, 6 to 8 months of drinking bourbon and having good friends around to talk about. But, again, Jim Beam was one of my first ones too. Did you find that you liked bourbon when you first tried it?
I don't know. I do want to say, I think that currently right now I'm probably, what was that? My mouth just slowed down for a half second.
Probably.
I think I'm probably like around 2016 Perry as opposed to 2017 Perry. I don't know if I've quite made the jump to I am nose to the ground in this.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe because I am in some other fields like gaming and wrestling. Like only have so much time to be
absolutely
as interested in some things.
This is what gaming is to you for me.
Exactly.
So.
And I love bourbon, but what was your question? Oh, did I like bourbon when I first started? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I promise I'm sober. I'm just tired.
Holidays will get you there.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was sort of a grit and bear it situation for me with bourbon.
Yeah.
Where it was like, this is okay. I'm a Kentuckian. I want to like bourbon, so I'm gonna stick around. And I think eventually you just develop a taste for it.
You do kind of, and I do kind of feel too like it's just something that's buried deep inside with you, that you kind of have to bring out after a little while. If everybody that is drinking bourbon, sure, you're going to try it, but I don't know. Like, bourbon is not the most complex of spirits. I feel like it's one of the more widely acceptable ones, though. Like people aren't.
Sure.
There aren't many people our age who are going out and drinking Scotch.
Right. Yeah.
Or drinking rum neat. You know,
of
I mean,
course.
rum is a party spirit.
Yeah. You put it in punches. And
Yeah,
things like
exactly.
that. Right.
Or, I almost said margaritas. I was like, that's completely
That's
wrong.
fun.
That's completely wrong.
Also, I just want to clarify real quick. I said nose to the ground instead of ear to the ground. Bringing that back. Just revisionist history.
But I understood what you were saying there.
Sure.
And like visually, I was thinking nose to the ground because that means you're like moving forward, where ear to the ground is where you're kind of like following
Listening
along.
for what's going
exactly.
on. Yeah.
So I got it. I hope
Yeah.
everybody else got it too. But thank you for clarifying.
Speaking of Scotch, I went out with some people we work with, not people I work with day to day, but like one of our clients. And one of the guys who is probably 25, 26 ordered Scotch. Like, really nice, like $60 shot of Scotch.
Interesting.
And, like, he was like, here, try some of this. I'd never had Scotch before.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I didn't
What'd you think?
It's pretty similar to bourbon. Like, it's close enough that I could appreciate it, where I was like, oh, this is good. I get this.
Yeah, I mean, overall, it's got some of the same
Right.
flavors as far as like the palate goes, but it's too earthy for me.
I get that.
It's a little too smoky too. I don't mind some smokiness, but that, like with Scotch, that just kind of is what is overpowering.
Yeah.
That being said, I am, we're 9 episodes in.
Yeah.
But sometime in the future, I would really like to, have a Scotch episode, have a rum episode, and kind of, especially as bourbon drinkers, compare the other spirits.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to be drinking straight tequila or anything. That'd be
It'd be a fun episode, though.
That'd be something.
This is that. Remember when we pitched doing doing a bunch of episodes in one day?
Oh, and which is going to happen eventually.
We just need to do all of the straight other alcohols. Be a real fun podcast by about episode.
Oh man,
4.
I don't know if I'd be able to work my laptop by the end of that if we're like mixing.
Audacity's just 1 8-hour recording. I was like, man,
there is no space left. There's no space left on your 2 terabyte hard drive.
It
to
erases
save
the beginning, so it starts like halfway through the second episode. We're already plastered. Perfect. Drink responsibly.
Yeah, please. That's something we don't say enough on this show. Is please
take care of yourselves.
Yes, absolutely. If you were to go back to first time drinking bourbon, Tanner, and say, "Hey, you should try this before you try anything else," what would you suggest? I know that, and
I can tell myself from like 4 years ago.
I'm going somewhere with this too.
See, it's interesting because I've developed a palate, so I don't know what my palate was.
That's a good point.
But I would say all around recommendation. I don't think I was too far off with Bullet. Like, Bullet is a good bourbon. I still really like Bullet. I don't buy it much anymore, but maybe Woodford, because it took me a couple of years to try Woodford.
Yeah,
and I really enjoy Woodford.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Four Roses. I only tried Four Roses like last year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Just the regular yellow label,
yeah,
or okay, yeah. Gotcha.
So something like that. I think the thing that turned me off from Knob Creek, and I think you kind of hit it without me realizing it, is that it is very nutty and sort of. I'm just doing a hand motion. I don't even know what I'm talking about.
For anybody who can't see.
Yeah. It's an audio medium. But yeah, the nuttiness, the sort of, not bitterness, but that sort of flavor, I think is maybe what took me off of it then, and maybe what is making me say like, okay, still not then. So I think my bad experience with it at the start maybe wasn't the right avenue to take if I had gone with something like Woodford.
I think that's fair. It's a little bit more complex, I think, than early drinkers can appreciate or understand.
Yeah.
So I think if it's not the more standard vanilla caramel oakiness,
right,
it's a little bit harder to grasp.
Yes.
So I definitely
don't pick something that's like tomato soup. I'm getting one in every episode I'm in, Perry. It's my thing, and it's great because no one knows what I'm saying.
We were gonna actually review it last episode, but we were like,
really?
no, let's wait for Tanner to get back because like we've Curtis and I have both had it, and it still kind of goes unnamed. But it's
the Voldemort of our show.
It was a little bit spoiled though. What we were actually talking about. But if anybody's jumping on board now. You're not gonna know until
no one's gonna know.
No.
Like that's the best part is I just keep saying tomato soup and there's no reason.
I'll be interested to see though if once you actually review it for the show, if that still stands as if that still stands as what you.
That's gonna be bizarre if I do.
It, though. Oh yeah, for sure.
You should have told me that was the one because I probably would have forgotten. And so I would have been like, man, this one also tastes like tomato soup.
Oh man, everything tastes like tomato soup now.
Is my tongue just tomato soup?
So what I just poured for myself, you can have a little bit if you want. I don't know how much you're going to want of this. It's another Knob Creek. It's a single barrel from the Frankfurt Kroger Wine and Spirits.
Wow, all the way up to Frankfurt.
Yeah, well, I had to go anyway today. Which we'll talk about in a minute because I meant to do this at the top of the show and I just kind of forgot. My buddy Swan the Bourbon Finder, Swan, go follow him on Instagram.
I do.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think he follows you too. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Let me know that there was a single barrel pick at the Kroger Wine and Spirits in Frankfurt. And nah.
I was waiting for it.
He said it's phenomenal. He gave me a little sample of it. It is, instead of 12 years, it's 13 years. 120 proof. I really quite like it. We're basically just kind of uncorking it for this episode. Oh, man. There's just so much caramel on that nose.
Oh, wow, yeah.
but I don't. At 120 proof, I don't get a whole lot of the ethanol. And for a 13-year-old, I like on the nose. There's not too much
that's
oak.
very good.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm a fan of that. Yeah.
See,
Ooh,
I like that a lot better than I do that Knob Creek small batch.
Yes, agreed.
Oh man, it just keeps on hitting you too for a little bit.
This is going to be a strange comparison. I always like trying to give comparisons to people maybe at my level of bourbon drinking, where it's not like I'm going to compare it to something outside of bourbon. It's almost like a cinnamon candy in the amount of like how long it lasts in your mouth.
Yep.
And I think that's actually really cool.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of that.
There's so much going on there on the finish too. I think I like the finish more than I do the actual palate.
Yeah, the finish is great.
Because like it does take about 20 to 30 seconds for it to really kind of open up once you've taken the first sip. But once it does, it's like super caramel, like almost like salted caramel, and then there's like a little bit of honey and it's just I'm a huge fan of this. And I think
cornucopia.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's the cornucopia of bourbons. I want to actually save this for a full review.
Sure.
Until we get.
Wow, yeah, that finish is strange.
Isn't it great though?
No, it's good.
I
mean,
mean,
it's a good strange. It's just incredibly different than anything I've ever had. Mm-hmm. It's almost like a hot sauce where it just comes in waves.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Which to me means that I'm probably going to give it a fairly good score when we review it. Just just because anybody who listens knows that I like something a little bit more complex than just a standard palate. But yeah, I look forward to us all kind of talking about it together on the show. I would not. What?
It just got a very strong pepper when I took a little bit more of a.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten any of that yet, but maybe I will in the last couple of sips. I wouldn't give either Knob Creek small batch or single barrel to a first time bourbon drinker.
Yeah, I think that was my mistake, and the reason I'm not a huge Knob fan.
And how far? Wow.
Classy.
Whew. How far into drinking bourbon were you when you actually had?
It was the second bottle of bourbon I ever had. Oh wow, that's very loud.
That wasn't.
BRB, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. Classy jokes.
And he's doing it in front of me, guys.
Sorry, man. I really had to go. This water bottle.
Have you watched The Detour yet?
No.
It's so funny.
Really?
Oh my gosh, it's hysterical. I think it's right up your alley.
The Detour. What is that again?
It's on TBS. It's with
Right. Okay. Yes.
What's
Sorry,
his name?
I was thinking of the movie, and I have seen with Robert Downey Jr. and Zach Galifianakis. What was that movie called?
I can't.
Anyway,
remember. Like it's not The Road Trip.
That's what I was thinking too, but it's not right.
I don't know. It doesn't matter. But anyway, it's got Samantha Bee's husband.
Right. Yeah.
As the main
yes,
guy.
I know which show we're talking about.
Very, very funny. But there was something in reference to what you just did in front of me that I can't spoil for you because it's. Oh. So it was the second bottle of bourbon that you ever bought. Did you have to kind of like dial it back a little bit?
Yeah, I was mixing it more and more than I was drinking it.
Like with bourbon and Coke or
L.A. always.
Oh well, yeah. We're in Kentucky. What am I talking about?
Of course. I think it was actually the bourbon I discovered Bourbon Night on.
Interesting.
But no, yeah, I didn't start drinking bourbon straight until about a year ago. Anyway, like more than just I want to taste this bourbon.
I wasn't the one who introduced you to that, was I?
I mean, as far as just like actually drinking bourbon to drink it straight.
Oh, okay.
Probably the first time I like just drank it to drink it straight was probably with you. But I mean, I would drink something straight when I first tried it, and then try
and then
it
go
with
from
something.
there.
Sure.
Yeah, for sure. What would you and the way I approach it too is that I think 90 proof or lower is the best way to go for first time drinkers.
That makes sense.
Would you introduce somebody with a Jim Beam, or do you think that somewhere like a Bullet is a better way to go?
I don't know, because I don't know if... So, there was a buddy of mine who had never had bourbon, and recently who we had, I want to say a bottle of Woodford. No, it was Bullet. We had a bottle of Bullet. Wow.
Bottle of Willet?
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Never mind.
Yeah, I said
I was impressed with whatever you just
I said a bottle of Willet. I cannot speak today. I promise it's not
That's
the
okay.
bourbon.
It's Wednesday.
Bottle of Bullet. I even pump faked on that one. But I had a bottle of Bullet, and I told him to try it, and he hated it. Now, I don't know if that was because he just didn't like bourbon or because it was Bullet. But I think that it may be better to give someone sort of a more run-of-the-mill bourbon, because no matter what, the higher-priced bourbon is going to be more complex in some regard, I would say.
No, it absolutely is.
So maybe giving some... It's like if someone's first ice cream flavor was Rocky Road. Like, that's going to be a different perspective than if it was vanilla or chocolate.
Yeah. That's a really good way of putting it.
Thanks.
And we'll bring that back up in the future too, I think, because I think that's the perfect analogy for introducing somebody to not just bourbon but anything in particular,
right?
Or anything in general. Excuse me.
I mean, that applies to so many things. Like, I wouldn't show, if I was showing someone rap, I wouldn't show them like Death Grips or some like really industrial like clipping or some like really industrial rap. Like, I would show them, a Tribe Called Quest or somebody like.
Sure, yeah.
That can be appreciated.
Side note, I love Tribe.
Oh, I know.
Tribe is one of my like all-time.
I got on a
favorite.
big Tribe kick over the holidays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it comes and goes in waves for me, but
right,
I mean, they're one of those go-tos. Kind of like, for me, and I'm going to get a bunch of eye rolls, but like John Mayer or Dave Matthews is for me. Like,
right.
I always go back to them eventually.
Sure.
Because they're just kind of my home.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as like rap music goes, as everybody can tell, I'm a very skinny, nerdy white dude.
Right. Yeah.
As far as rap music goes for me, Tribe is like where my home is. But anyway, bourbon.
Yes. Sorry. All these analogies.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I think my problem with showing somebody Bullet as an intro is that it's a higher rye, so it's spicier.
Right.
And like I that's why I think too. That's why a lot of people who are first time drinkers don't drink a whole lot of Wild Turkey, because it's also a higher rye.
Yeah.
So it's just a little bit harsher on the palate.
Right. Exactly.
That being said, though, it is on the lower end of the spectrum in terms of proof. Bullet.
Yes.
So I can see that being more approachable than, anything higher proof is what I'm getting at. I think everybody needs to try Jim Beam at least once.
Sure. I mean, you got to have that.
Respect the classics.
Yeah, of course.
And, Jim Beam's not my favorite. And I just realized, too, all three of what we're going to be drinking tonight is from the Jim Beam distillery.
It is. A really cool distillery, by the way.
Again, have not been there.
You should go. It's cool.
I would love to. We passed by it. We went to Nashville this weekend for New Year's.
Oh, nice.
No, not nice. It was a miserable time.
Well, never mind.
We had a girl get lost.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's an off-air story.
It's a fun New Year's.
It was, again, off-air story. But it was a rough time. But we passed it on our way down to Nashville. And that's a great way to do the Bourbon Trail too. As a side note, is going towards Louisville, because once you actually get past Louisville, you can hit Bardstown, which has two or three different distilleries, and then onto Laredo to go to Maker's Mark and all that good stuff, and bring it on back around to Lexington. And
my only recommend with the Bourbon Trail, maybe not as much as we've done it, but break it up.
Oh, for sure.
I cannot imagine people do it in one day, and I don't know how.
Oh gosh, if anybody can do it in one day, call in.
Yeah, that's almost a feat of time.
Oh no,
you'd have to start at like 9 a.m.
Yeah, at the very earliest. I mean, I don't know if distilleries even open earlier than that.
Yeah, and then close at maybe 5.
And I've been thinking, yeah, exactly. But I've been thinking about that. Like, tours are an hour long.
Yes.
And then you have a tasting.
Right.
Then you have to drive to the next one.
Right.
And then you have to go through the whole thing again. So yeah, it is almost a weekend or 2 weekend kind of deal.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're gonna get burnt out on it.
To be honest, you get really tired of hearing the basics of how bourbon is made.
Yeah. But I mean, that's why different distilleries offer, cocktail classes,
Right.
or the history of the actual distillery. Buffalo Trace just started the what do they call it? The Bourbon Pompeii tour. That they just uncovered the E.H. Taylor distillery that was not underneath, but it was kind of tucked away. I don't remember the specifics of it. But you can go and do something different.
That's really cool. And to be fair, I don't think you have to do the tour to do the Bourbon Trail. I don't
think you do either.
I think you just go up to the desk and get the stamp if you want. But what's the fun in that?
That's exactly what I was about to say.
If you're gonna do it.
I mean, make the most of it.
Right.
I just got a little bit
whatever,
I got some of that nuttiness on that last sip of that. But anyway, so here's where we're kind of been leading with all of this. We are collaborating with It's Bourbon Night to do. I don't know the best way to phrase this. We're trying to pool suggestions for what's the best bourbon to give to a newbie. It can be, what you started out with, what you would prefer somebody to start out with. And if you have suggestions, add us.
Yeah.
At My Bourbon Shop on Twitter and Instagram. You can use the hashtag This Is My Bourbon Podcast to reach us as well with your suggestions. We got to come up with another hashtag for people to use, like bourbon for beginners.
Baby bourbons.
It
sounds like we're giving bourbon to a baby.
Bourbon for babies.
Yeah, no, that's even worse.
With a Z at the end and a 4 in the middle.
Infant. Can you put numbers in hashtags now?
Can you?
Can you?
I don't think you can.
I saw a really cool hashtag. So have you seen the trailer for the movie Annihilation?
Yes, I have.
Dude who made Ex Machina, Natalie Portman movie.
Yeah.
Their hashtag is Annihilation, but it's all spaced out weird. It's like ANNHIL. Like, it's really cool.
Can they do that? They can't actually do that.
It was a hashtag. I don't know how it worked. They must have signed up with Twitter. It's really interesting.
Huh. Very interesting.
Yeah.
I'll have to
This is my baby bourbon? Nope.
No. I think maybe just beginner bourbon.
Yeah, better than bourbon for beginners. That's
so
a long
yeah,
hashtag.
so use at
Beg
us.
Burb.
Big Burb?
Beg Burb.
Beg Burb.
BEGBOURB.
Oh gosh.
There's your hashtag.
That sounds so weird.
Beg Burb. It sounds
Beg a Burb.
It sounds like if an alien came to our planet, watched Sesame Street, and it was like, oh, my favorite Sesame Street character is Beg Burb.
Beg Burb. I love to cook them on.
That Noel is really my favorite. I love Ert and Bernie.
We need to do a whole spin-off show of Sesame Street
called Sesame Street.
With the umlau over the U and Stroot.
Oh my god.
Oh, we have fun here. So I think
I really love Victor the Trash.
Is he German?
No, it's just Oscar the Grouch.
Okay.
But he's purple.
Okay. Anyway, so use the hashtag beginner bourbon.
Sesame Street.
I don't even know how to spell
SOOSAMESTROOT. Sesame Street.
It's my favorite show for children.
It comes on BPS.
Oh, things are going off the rails, and that's okay, because that's what happens when you drink some bourbon. So anyway, use the hashtag beginner bourbon, and This Is My Bourbon Podcast. The two separate hashtags. Add us at My Bourbon Night.
Beginner Bourbon and This Is My Bourbon Podcast is all one long hashtag. There's all your characters.
At us, at My Bourbon Shop. You can also at It's Bourbon Night, because they're kind of the Chad and Sarah are really the brainchildren behind.
Wow, I've never
this.
heard brainchild pluralized.
I don't think I have either. And also that reminds me. You know what? I'll come back to it in a minute. I don't want to stray too much further off the topic. So use all of that. to let us know what your ideal beginner bourbon or bourbons would be, and in an undisclosed amount of time, because we haven't even figured it out yet.
Sure.
We're going to be pooling all of that information, and we're going to be doing a crossover episode of It's Bourbon Night and This Is My Bourbon Podcast, where we talk about all of that and what we kind of think the best, most ideal newbie bourbon is. So again, use the hashtags Beginner Bourbon and This Is My Bourbon Podcast. You could also use It's Bourbon Night if you really want to. At us, at My Bourbon Shop, at It's Bourbon Night as well if you want to. And let us know. You can use Instagram or Twitter. It doesn't really matter.
Wherever hashtags are sold.
Sure, yeah. Facebook now, too, apparently.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, that's been going on for, 4 or 5 years now. So,
sure,
I mean, it doesn't matter.
New development, Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. But, we'll be checking it pretty regularly over the next few weeks, months, whatever, until we feel like we've got a pretty good idea of what your go-to bourbons are for beginners. So all that being said, we look forward to your results on that. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And also, we are changing up the format of the show a little bit for the rest of the year. And I'm going to talk about this, and we're going to jump into the review for the episode of Jim Beam, White Label. Chad and Sarah are actually going to be recurring guest hosts on the show.
Yay.
About once a month, maybe twice a month, depending upon their availability. They've got It's Bourbon Night, too, to deal with. So if they're able to do more than once a month, great. So basically what's going to happen is that every other week is going to be Tanner and Curtis.
Or some
iteration of that. Yeah.
Voltron of us. Yeah. Tonight I'm playing both the roles of Tanner and Curtis.
Oh, you're not doing a very good job. Your Curtis impersonation is terrible.
I'm sorry. Sounds a lot like me. So you haven't really known when I've been weaving the two in and out. That whole Sesame Street bit was all Curtis.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, now I have to go back and, edit it in. I'm going to do a video on YouTube where there's subtitles, per name, or, per person talking.
And that one's written Kertis.
Sesame Street.
The Sesame Street, man.
Anyway, so every other week is going to be Curtis and Tanner. And then we're going to intersperse some guests or friends on the show between those weeks. And it's either going to be, friend of the show, like we've done my dad before in the past. Next week's episode, spoiler, is actually going to be my father-in-law, Brett, who is the inventor of the Lincoln Avenue, which is by far the best bourbon cocktail I've ever had, and you will ever have too if you decide to. Yeah. Tanner can attest. I mean, it's phenomenal.
It's incredible.
And then week after that, Curtis and Tanner are going to be back on, and I think after that, Chad and Sarah are going to have their first official episode as recurring guest hosts of the show. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Once everything really starts getting off, I wanted to kind of solidify a little bit more, a regular schedule for the show, and I think this is a good way to keep it going. And it gives us a platform, or it gives really Chad and Sarah rather a platform to talk about. That's one of Marie's old toys. Yeah, Tanner's holding up a very nondescript form of or bit of rubber that used to be our dog's toy.
Sorry to completely derail you.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I just wanted to let you know before I forgot.
Sure, thanks.
But it'll give Chad and Sarah a platform to talk about stuff maybe that they can't expand upon as much on their YouTube channel. It's Bourbon Night. So, the podcast isn't just about, us rambling for an hour and a half about bourbon. It's also, trying to help other people talk about bourbon or learn how to talk about bourbon or, giving them the opportunities to do this. So
it's also about Sesame Street. I almost actually said Sesame Street.
The official show of the podcast, Sesame Street.
All right, sorry, I'm gonna come off that bit.
We're gonna have to come up with some kind of
theme song.
Oh God!
Don't
We're talking
do it now.
The only musician in the room, and something's gonna come of that. Anyway, so be on the lookout for what's going to happen in the future. We got a lot of good things.
Just thinking of what that song could be. I'm sorry.
Oh man. Okay, I think we've about wrapped up the topic portion of the show.
That bizarre ending.
That was a very strange way to end all that. Hold on. Had to drink water. All that being said, let's move on to what I think is really the ideal kind of, not ideal, but what a lot of people consider to be bourbon. We're going to do a review of Jim Beam White Label.
Yeah. I love it.
Really?
I love that we're doing the review.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, whoa, don't get ahead of yourself.
I was like,
It's fine to mix.
No,
It's good to have in the house.
You know what? Let's review it before we actually
Sort of a preview. Yeah. I was trying to do pre-review, and it's just the word preview. I'm real dumb. I thought I was being super clever. That's why I pronounced it weird.
This episode was brought to you by Tanner's Thesaurus.
Yeah.
It's just redundant.
It's just the word preview. Is that where... Well, I guess... Yeah, that makes sense. I guess review and preview probably have the same root origin.
I think that they're similar in
brothers in words.
Origin, nature.
There's the bottle.
And that's the end of the bottle, folks.
We are both drinking half a bottle.
No, I only had about 4 or 5 ounces left in it. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not really super looking forward to this. But,
really?
I'm not a huge fan of Jim Beam, but it'll be interesting to do this. For those of you who don't know, and you probably do, Jim Beam White Label is an 80 proof 4-year bourbon. It is distilled by the Jim Beam
by
distiller.
Mr. Beam himself.
By Mr. Beam, yeah.
Mr. Beam. That's funny. Like Rowan Atkinson.
Look at that. There's another show idea. It's Mr. Bean, but it's like Jacob Beam, like way back in the day. The first bourbon distiller. Never mind.
He's just knocking over bottles.
We got it.
Flipping off the queen somehow. How'd the queen get to the distillery? I don't know. It's a silly show.
Oh my gosh. Anyway.
What's that? There's Big Boar. Big
Here
Boar, how'd you get on
Here comes Moel.
Goes to dump a bottle out and it's Victor the Trash.
Oh my gosh.
Curtis is going to miss so much not being on this episode.
We're going to have to bring all of this back up next time.
Of course, without any introduction.
He's going to have no idea what's going on. Previously on Sesame Street.
Previously on Sesame Street.
Big Barb.
What? They all sound slightly Swedish. Big Barb and Moel. And Ert and Bernie.
Okay, so we're both drinking this Jim Beam out of Glen Karen's Christmas present, by the way.
Thanks, Glenn.
Glens Karen. This is an episode brought to you by Glens Karen.
Thanks, Glenn and Karen, for the sweet cups. It's funny because I sound way drunker than I am.
I know you're not drunk
really
at all.
Drunk.
You're really not.
Just high on life.
Before we get to it, I would like to say our good friend Tom Monarch of the show.
Yeah.
Recently lost his mom. So in that spirit, we want to send this cheers out to Tom and his family in memory of his mama, and go hug your mama.
Yeah.
So cheers, Tanner.
Love you, Tom.
And that's Jim Beam.
Yes, it is.
I had Jim Beam Distiller's Cut last night for the first time in a little while, which again is another one of my top 5 bourbons of the year. Jim Beam's always kind of, it has a really, really distinct profile to it.
Yeah.
And one of those things that I hadn't really been able to put my finger on until last night was the nuttiness that's on the palate. Hold on, I have to text my wife back.
My wife.
My wife. That being said, there's that caramel and like a splash of vanilla, and that's about
And that's it.
all I get on the palate. The nose for me kind of sucks.
Yeah, it doesn't really have one.
No, I mean
It smells generic.
It almost smells like chemically.
Yeah,
I mean, not in like a. It's
not caustic, but it's
just.
It smells like a really strong cleaner, in a way.
Yeah, and I mean if I went up to somebody and I said, "Smell this before you try it," they would say no.
Yeah.
I think. That being said, I actually do like this better in a Glen Karen. I've never had Jim Beam out of a Glen Karen before. I like it better in the Glen Karen than I do out of a rocks glass or highball or something like that.
I'll say this: it is. Is it uninteresting? Yes. Is it bad? No.
No, I don't think it's bad either, but
it's easy to drink.
Oh, for sure. It's 80 proof. I mean, if this is hard for you to drink, then welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Happy to have you here. Can't believe that you've sat through an hour of us talking about Sesame Street. There's basically no finish. I mean, it almost tastes like a graham cracker.
Yeah, it's there and then it's gone.
Yeah, it's very generic. But I could see, as a
there really isn't a finish, is there?
I could see as a first time bourbon drinker trying this and being like, I could do this,
right?
I mean, it
is a good introduction.
Yeah, it's not inhibiting in too many ways. I mean, it doesn't really challenge you, but you're drinking bourbon.
I tell you what, it's probably great for things like bourbon balls or
oh yeah, for sure.
Maybe cooking with bourbon. Like if you want to just envelop something in a bourbon taste that just tastes like this is what bourbon tastes like, I think Jim Beam is fine.
Yeah, definitely. So I think I got this. Did I buy this bottle? No, I got this bottle as a Christmas present.
Yay.
I got this bottle as a Christmas present last year.
Thanks, Glenn and Karen.
But Jim Beam runs for what, like $15, something like that. So all that being said, repeat listeners know of our rating system. But if you are just now tuning in for the first time, we have a rating system of nose, palate, finish, and price. I keep trying to say nose, palate, and price because that's how it started out, and then we added in the finish later on.
That is out of 5.
And every category is out of 5, and then we tally it up at the end for a total score out of 20. Typically, our bourbons that we kind of fall in the favorable side are at about a 15 or 16 out of 20.
Yeah.
And the only one that we've really disliked, I think, was the Old Forester 1920 from a few weeks ago.
Yeah, what'd I give it, like a 9 or something?
We didn't give it very high, but again, we're going to revisit that sometime in the future because I don't think that was a good Excuse me. I'll get there eventually. Okay, I'm good. I don't think that was a good representation.
I thought you were doing a cool kid thing and shortening representation to rep.
No, I was
all about.
No, I don't think it was a good representation of that bourbon as a whole. So, no offense to Old Forester, I really do like the 1920. So I think we need to step back and check that out again. So all of that being said, Tanner, do you want to go first? Or?
Sure.
Okay, so
Curtis?
start out.
No? All right.
All right. Silent as ever.
Had to get that joke in. Nose? Really none to speak of. It's kind of hard. So I would just give that a 1. I mean, it doesn't smell bad, I guess. It's got that going for it.
It's not preferable.
No. I wouldn't buy this as a candle. Although the Jim Beam candles are actually pretty decent.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they don't smell much like this. They're much more vanilla-y.
Interesting.
Jim Beam's gift shop is baller. Jim Beam Palette. That's their new line of bourbon. I guess like a 3. I mean, it's right in the middle of the road, right? Where it's just like, this is fine.
That's how I view it.
Yeah, like it's not gonna turn anyone off, but it's not gonna get anybody excited either. Finish 1. Well, I don't know. See, here's the thing, because like it has no finish. That doesn't make it a bad finish. It's kind of like palate, where it's like this has no finish. Some people might view that as a great thing. I doubt most people would.
I was going to say, there aren't a whole lot of people who are going, yeah, I don't want to experience my bourbon longer than I have to.
Sure. Yeah. Especially at this stage of the game.
Yeah.
If they're listening to a bourbon podcast. Unless they just really like us. So, yeah, we'll give it
We're charming as heck, man.
Yeah. Sesame Street? You kidding me? I'd give it a 2. And then, price? 5.
Yeah, I mean...
That's a great price for a bourbon.
It really is. I mean... It's a great bourbon to have around, you know. I mean, just to kind of...
That's an 11 for me.
Okay, sure. Yeah, 11 out of 20. I mean, Jim Beam is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, I mean...
Yeah, I'm not knocking it at all. I don't think it's a bourbon you just sip straight to enjoy.
No.
But if you want to put this in a cocktail, you want to put this in just some Coke or LA,
I mean,
go for it.
It's great for a bourbon and Coke. I mean, I think
it is. Totally is.
It's the ideal bourbon and Coke bourbon.
Yeah, it's a mixing bourbon.
Yeah, for sure. For the nose on me, I mean, it's a 1.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just really, there's nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I said earlier, there's like the ethanol, but that's about it. And the chemically smell. I mean, honestly, I would bump it down to a 0.5, but I'm trying to be at least a little bit nice because it is the best-selling bourbon of all time.
Right. Yeah. Got to give it some sort of cred.
Yeah, I mean, I'd give the nose a 1. The palate, I think I will also give it a 3. I mean, it's just there's nothing super specific. Hold on, I want to take another sip so I can give you a real-time review of the finish. Yeah.
Looks like a 3 face to me.
See, yeah, the palate's definitely a 3 just because it's very baseline.
Yeah. It is standard bourbon. I think that is the best description of Jim Beam.
Yeah.
It is standard. It's not great, it's not bad.
You know, I'd give the finish a 2.5.
Oh, you're going to... Okay. Did we do halves?
I
can't remember if we do or not.
We brought it back up. See, I don't remember if you were there for it. Because Curtis and I definitely agreed on doing halves. But I don't know if you were there for that.
Okay, that's fine. We're on a 10-point scale instead of a 5.
Yeah.
For a total of a 40-point scale instead of a 20.
No, I'll give the finish a 2.
I mean, it's fine if you want to go halves. I don't care.
No, I'll give it a 2. I mean, it's just, there's nothing special about it.
Okay.
And then I think I'll give the price a 4. Just because, I mean, there are better, as you know, I'm a huge fan of Heaven Hill Bottled and Bond.
Yes.
And the Heaven Hill Green Label, which is 90 proof.
Yeah.
Both of those are under the $14 or $15 that you would pay for Jim Beam White Label.
Yeah.
That being said, this is not the worst thing you can get.
No, but that, yeah.
No. And you know, it is by no means the best thing you're going to get.
Right.
So I would give it a 4, solely because, you know, it is what it is. You can take Jim Beam or you can leave Jim Beam any day of the week. So I mean that rounds me out at a 10.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So 10 out of 20 and 11 out of 20.
Yeah. Which is about right where I was expected it
yeah,
to fall,
I mean, I didn't think that I was going to be, you know, scoring it as high as I did the William LaRue Weller.
Yeah. I mean, to its credit, I scored it higher than I did the Old Forester.
True.
Yeah.
True.
So it is not bad. Which, again, I'm probably doing that bourbon a disservice. I'm not trying to say that.
No.
But it is not a... I'll say this about Jim Beam. It is a good bourbon for its price. Sure, there may be better bourbons at its price, but you can't, if you've never had Jim Beam before, you're not risking that much of an investment to try it.
Oh, no, not at all.
And you will eventually drink it.
No.
This isn't a bottle that's just going to sit around forever.
And even if you don't drink it, somebody else will.
Someone will, right?
You know,
exactly.
I mean, you are going to have somebody over eventually, or know somebody that you can bring a bottle to, who's like, yeah, I love Jim Beam.
Right.
You know, and all the power to them. I mean,
exactly.
You know,
a friend of mine who loves bourbon, she basically drinks Jim Beam all the time.
Really?
Yeah, that's like her go-to. Like
that's fine. I mean, I know somebody who drinks KT regularly.
Right.
And I mean, they're not a like seasoned bourbon drinker or anything, but you know, that's just it's just kind of their go-to. They drink it to get drunk. They don't drink it to
it's
really
a cheap
enjoy.
and easy bourbon.
Yeah,
that is the best way to put it.
But you know, one of the things that I try to make sure that I establish this when I'm talking to people about bourbon. If you like what you like, good on you.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, there's like after all of us just sitting here, I'm getting like a very tiny hint of cherry just sitting on my
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
I mean, it's just barely there, but I have a little teeny tiny little bit of cherry.
Huh.
It's not enough to bump anything up.
Yeah.
But it is just kind of hanging out with me.
It's pleasant.
Drink what you like to drink.
Of course.
You know? I mean, if you want to spend $100 on a bottle of bourbon, good. If you want to spend $10, that's fine.
I feel you.
You know? I mean, it just it just depends on your palate. It depends on what you can handle or afford or whatever.
Right.
You know? I mean, don't let our word be definitive.
No, of course
on
not.
I mean, what we talk about is merely just suggestion.
Yeah.
So all that being said, would you buy another bottle of Jim Beam?
Oh yeah, I'm sure I'll buy a bottle of Jim Beam.
I got another bottle
relatively
upstairs.
Soon, yeah. It's just one of those bourbons you keep.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just a bourbon you have on hand.
It's just supposed
if
to be
wants to mix, or if somebody wants to just have.
It's just supposed to be something that's there. It's a mainstay.
Yeah.
And I think like Bulleit's creeping into that. Makers is there. Woodford is kind of there, not so much I think because Woodford is kind of neither here nor there sometimes.
Right. Depends on the household, probably.
Yeah, exactly. But Jim Beam is Jim Beam.
Yeah.
I really appreciate the fact that they have stuck to their guns for so long too. I mean, they're not changing a whole lot to accommodate the current market.
Right. I mean, they do that with some of their other bourbons. So I think keeping Jim Beam is a
Jim Beam White Label is always going to be Jim Beam White Label.
Right, of course.
I mean, it overall is a fairly solid, and I'm trying to give it more accolades than what I had scored it.
Yeah, and I don't think 11's a bad score for Jim. Or 10 or whatever. I think it is so undeniably itself that no matter what we score it, it's not going to change anyone's opinion of Jim.
Mm-mm. And I don't think either that, what we just said is going to make anybody want to go out and buy a bottle.
Sure. I mean, I will say this. If you've never had Jim Beam, try it.
Oh, gosh. If you're drinking...
I'm surprised.
Oh, yeah, I am too. Especially if you're listening to the show and you've not had Jim Beam. But I think it is a great bourbon to introduce people to the or to use to introduce people to the world of bourbon.
Yes.
So all that being said, still go and buy a bottle of Jim Beam.
Yes.
Just to have around, if nothing else.
Yep.
It's just a staple. That's all. So, Tanner.
Yes.
This is the time when we would normally move into our segment, recommendations.
Right.
However,
right.
I want to pose this to you.
Okay.
A rename.
Okay. Did you guys come up with this last week?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
This has been me.
This is a Perry Ridge.
I've been postulating on my own for the past few. Perry Ridge.
Perry a Ridge.
Oh, okay, there was an O in there. I couldn't tell.
There's a Perry Ritter joint. It's like a Spike Lee joint.
I kind of wanted to rename this and let me know if you think it's a little much.
I will.
Tips and Bits.
I love it. It's just dumb enough.
I think that it's a little bit better than recommendations.
Yeah, perfect.
Because recommendations is a bit of a mouthful, so I think this is
Tips and Bits.
I think Tips and Bits is our
love it.
Our best way to name this segment.
Perfect.
And we're drunk enough at this point to be like, oh, whatever. So, what are some tips and bits that you have for people? And we are going to include like the idea of recommendations under this umbrella, I think.
Okay, good, because that was the only thing I was prepared for.
Yeah.
My recommendation this episode is a book.
A book?
We read?
Books are for nerds.
We talked about games earlier, so I had nothing to talk about, so I thought of a book while we were sitting here. Actually, there are two books, very different. One more mainstream, one very niche. There's a design book that I got for Christmas called A Smile in the Mind. I'm actually going to mention 3 books now.
Jeez.
I'll be very quick.
No, it's all good.
A Smile in the Mind is a book about wit in graphic design. I think it has a lot of mainstream appeal as far as like if you want to learn about graphic design, this is a really cool way to do it because everybody loves those articles that people post like, the FedEx logo has an arrow in it or the Amazon logo is a smile and it goes from A to Z, things like that, right? That is a very easy thing to appreciate once it's pointed out to you, I think. A little bit harder to create, and this book is sort of on both sides of it. I think I like what it does because it mentions humor, and if you analyze humor to death, it no longer becomes funny.
Right.
So they're like, we're not going to analyze this wit to death. We're just going to put it on a pedestal, and you can look at it and sort of make your own opinions. And there are tons of resource images. It also talks about like the different ways designers approach wit, as opposed to like adding 2 elements together, subtracting one element from the other.
Sure.
Differences. Overlaps. It's really cool. It's a very good book. Very pretty book. It's a coffee table book. It's great. It's like $25 on Amazon. The second book is called Uncredited, which is a book of... I actually got this as a Secret Santa gift at work.
Nice.
It's a book of movie screen title sequences.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool.
That's phenomenal.
And I haven't gotten a chance to look at the DVD yet. Apparently there's a DVD, and I don't know if it has all of the sequences on it or just some of them.
I would hope so.
But it's a
Is
really
that legal?
Cool... Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a really cool resource, just seeing all of them broken down. The person who got it for me earmarked the Goodfellas sequence because that's my favorite movie.
Oh, nice.
Really cool to read about. And it has a little like synopsis of each one and how they came to be and the reason for them. Very cool. The third, which is much more mainstream, is called Devil in the White City. It's a nonfiction book.
Not heard of
it. It's being made into a Scorsese Leonardo DiCaprio movie.
Interesting.
I read it before that was announced and got very excited when they announced that because Scorsese is my favorite director, as Goodfellas, obviously. And it is a book both about H.H. Hughes, who was a serial killer, and the Chicago World's Fair.
Wow.
And they overlap. He was a serial killer during the World's Fair, and briefly, like he had a hotel, or he had a place where women could stay, and people were flocking to the city for the World's Fair. He would kind of lure them in. He was an incredibly charming guy, and then kill them.
Very interesting.
It's a super interesting book. The fact that the Chicago World's Fair of 1892, I think 1894, it was a weird year. The fact that it even happened at all is fascinating after you read the book, like just all the things that shouldn't have happened that did. And sort of their last grasp for the Ferris wheel because they needed to beat the Eiffel Tower. Super interesting book from both sides, and I can't wait for the movie. I think it's a really cool read. It's nonfiction too, so it's legit.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm trying to think. I had something earlier, and now I can't think about it. Or I can't think about it. I'm tired.
Yeah, same.
Worn out from have at least one phone or one friend that can track your phone.
Does this have anything to do with the fact that you lost someone?
Not even a little bit.
Okay, wow, interesting.
No, it does.
No,
Absolutely.
of course.
Let's see. If you are in Frankfurt, go to their Kroger Wine and Spirits and pick up a bottle of this Knob Creek single barrel. Very specifically, this is barrel number 5442. It doesn't have any. It's not like the Henry McKenna single barrel, which is a bottle and bond, and it has to do with the whole distilling season or anything. It is strictly barrel 5442. Just if you're around, because I think it's great. I'm looking forward to actually reviewing it here in a few weeks. In a couple weeks, I think we're actually doing a 1792 full proof.
Nice.
Spoilers. But that was a bottle that Kurt picked up recently. That we had talked about on the show. If you can get your hands on the Super Nintendo Classic,
Good luck.
But I mean, it's a lot of fun, especially if you're a 90s kid.
Yeah.
Or you know, an '80s kid who grew up with all that. You know, it's a good time. I'm trying to think if there's anything. Oh, The Detour. You know,
right.
I've been watching The Detour like crazy with Lucy recently. Wash your hands. Don't get sick.
Good advice. Always wash your hands.
Always wash your hands. I don't understand people who don't wash their hands.
I don't either. It's so habitual. It's so habitual now. It's like ingrained.
It's a no-brainer too.
Right.
I don't mean to get on a soapbox or anything, but like
soapbox
is almost what I said.
Well,
I don't mean to get on a soapbox, but like you go into any bathroom and it's basically provided for you.
Right.
Like
it's right there.
Why wouldn't you take advantage of that? Like it's free bathing. In the most like basic of ways,
sure.
you know? I mean, take advantage of that.
Bathe. Get your bathe on.
Yeah, bathe.
Everybody.
Brush your teeth. Anyway, whatever. that's my rant for the episode. Anyway, I just want to say thank you all so much for listening. This has been a roller coaster of an episode.
Yeah. That's what you get when you get the two of us in a room.
Man, no kidding. Tanner, where can people find you on social media?
I'm at Tanner B. Cheney for all things. If you want to check out the stream, it's at Dorm Streams or twitch.tv/DormStreams.
Yeah, check that out. I've watched a couple episodes actually, and
nice.
I enjoyed it. Not that I like. It's always interesting to go into something that you don't know a whole lot about and listen to people talk about it.
Right.
I love video games. I
Sure.
don't play them a whole lot. I'm not like a diehard gamer or anything,
Yeah.
but you know, I always like hearing people who are passionate about something talk about that thing. So yeah, definitely go check out Dorm Streams.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, we're all about plugging here on the show,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. If you would like to reach the show, you can email us. This is my bourbon shop at gmail.com. At My Bourbon Shop on Instagram and Twitter. You can find us on Facebook at This Is My Bourbon Shop. If you would like to send us a question or a comment or anything, use the hashtag This Is My Bourbon Podcast. Leave us a rate and review on iTunes. Let your friends know if they aren't a big fan or don't have iTunes or Google Play or whatever, that they can go to Bandcamp now and start listening to the show for free. You can download it for free. You can also use that to help support the show. There's an option up to pay if you would like to. Of course you don't have to, but it's always there. And that being said, you can become a patron of the show at patreon.com/thisismybourbonpodcast with all those different tiers that are up. If you want to reach me personally, I'm at pritter1492 pretty much across the board. It's not that hard to find me. I'm there. Hey, if you want to listen to my music, I don't know if I've ever plugged this. I have music too online, perryritter.bandcamp.com. It's
good stuff.
It's out there. I'm in the process of writing a new album.
Oh, nice.
I should have I'm in talks to have a show in February with a guy from Nashville, but he hasn't emailed me back since like the beginning of December, end of November. So I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But
right.
Be on the lookout. I've got a bunch of music up there if you'd like to listen to it. Thank you all so much for listening. I think I don't feel like we say that enough. Thank you for listening.
For sure.
We're just getting our feet on the ground in terms of, figuring out how to do all this.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
and where we fit into everything. The more you let your friends know about this show, the more you tell people that it's something worth checking out, the better chance we have of being able to hang around longer. We don't want the bourbon craze to die by any means. And as long as you're listening, we're always going to be here. So with all that being said, we will see you in a couple of weeks. But until then, my name is Perry.
I'm Tanner.
And this is My Bourbon Podcast.